The stranger rode into Bodie, California on a Thursday afternoon in late August of 1878, dust clinging to every inch of his weathered frame, and nobody could have guessed that he would fall so desperately in love that he would trade his freedom for it without a second thought. Austin Xander had been drifting for 3 years since the war had taken his family's ranch in Texas, moving from town to town with nothing but his horse, his rifle, and a leather satchel containing everything he owned. Bodie was supposed to be just another stop, another place to earn enough money to keep moving, but fate had other plans entirely. He found work quickly at the lumber mill on the outskirts of town, hauling timber from dawn until dusk for wages that barely covered a room at the boarding house and meals at the saloon. The work was honest and hard, exactly what he needed to keep his mind from wandering to darker places. Bodie was thriving in those days, swollen with miners seeking their fortunes in the hills, merchants eager to separate those miners from their gold, and all the chaos that came with a boomtown perched high in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Austin kept to himself mostly, nodding politely to the other workers, but never lingering for drinks or card games after the day ended. He had learned that attachments only brought pain, and he had no intention of planting roots anywhere ever again. That philosophy served him well for exactly 5 days. On his 6th evening in Bodie, he walked past the small library building near the Methodist church, a modest structure that looked almost out of place among the saloons and gambling halls. The sun was beginning its descent behind the mountains, painting everything in shades of amber and rose. That was when he saw her for the first time. She sat on the front steps of the library, a book open in her lap, so absorbed in whatever story held her attention that she did not notice him passing by. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and she wore a blue dress that had been mended carefully in several places. Something about the scene struck him as impossibly peaceful in a town that never seemed to stop moving or shouting or fighting. Austin told himself to keep walking, but his feet slowed of their own accord. He watched her turn a page with careful fingers, saw the slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth, and felt something shift in his chest that he had not experienced in years. Then she looked up, perhaps sensing his gaze, and their eyes met for a brief moment. Hers were green, bright and intelligent, and they widened slightly at finding herself observed. Austin tipped his hat quickly and hurried on, his heart doing strange things in his chest. That night in his sparse room at the boarding house, he lay awake longer than usual, seeing those green eyes every time he closed his own. The next evening, he found himself taking the same route past the library, telling himself it was simply the most direct path back to his lodgings. She was there again, reading in the fading light, and this time he forced himself to walk past without slowing. But he noticed everything anyway, the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, the worn leather binding of whatever book held her captive, the contentment that seemed to radiate from her despite the rough surroundings. By the 3rd evening, Austin admitted to himself that he was deliberately seeking her out. This time when he approached, she glanced up before he had even drawn close, and something like recognition flickered across her face. He nodded respectfully, and she returned the gesture with a small smile before returning to her reading. On the 4th evening, he gathered his courage and slowed as he passed. "Seems like a good book," he said, his voice sounding rough even to his own ears. She looked up, that same slight smile appearing. "It is. Have you read Oliver Twist?" "Cannot say that I have. Never learned my letters properly." The admission should have embarrassed him, but she showed no judgment in her expression. "That is a shame. There are so many wonderful worlds waiting in books. Reckon I have seen plenty of the real world. Not sure I need imaginary ones." "Sometimes the imaginary ones are kinder," she said softly, and there was something in her tone that suggested she knew about unkind realities all too well. Austin found himself wanting to ask her name, her story, everything about her, but he held back. "Evening to you, miss," he said instead, and continued on his way. "Good evening," she called after him, and he felt the warmth of those simple words all the way back to his room. The next day at the mill, Austin worked with unusual energy, suddenly eager for the day to end. His co-worker, a grizzled man named Pete who had been in Bodie since the silver strike began, noticed his distraction during their midday break. "You got that look about you," Pete said, chewing on a piece of dried beef. "What look?" "The look of a man who has seen a woman. Which one caught your eye?" "One of the girls at the saloon." Austin shook his head. "Nobody, just tired." Pete laughed knowingly but did not press further. Austin was grateful for that. He was not ready to put words to whatever was happening inside him. That evening, the woman on the library steps was reading a different book, this one with a red cover. Austin approached with less hesitation than before. "New story today." She looked up and her smile came more easily this time. "I finished Oliver Twist last night. Could not put it down, even when the lamp oil was running low. This is Jane Eyre now. You must read powerful fast. When a story is good enough, I suppose I do. It is the one thing that makes this town bearable." Austin settled himself on the bottom step, not quite beside her but close enough for easier conversation. His legs ached from the day's labor, and he told himself that was the only reason for stopping. "You do not like Bodie, do you?" She countered, tilting her head to look at him properly. He considered the question. "It is a town, no better or worse than others I have seen." "Then you have not been in the same Bodie I know. This place is all sharp edges and broken promises." She softened her words with a small smile. "But the library is nice, and the mountains are beautiful when the light hits them just right. You from around here originally?" "No. My father brought us here 2 years ago, chasing silver like everyone else. He thought he would strike it rich, build us a better life than what we had in Missouri. He died in a mine collapse 6 months after we arrived." The matter-of-fact way she said it did not hide the pain underneath. Austin felt an unexpected kinship with her grief. "I am sorry. That is a hard thing." "Yes, it was. Still is some days. My mother takes in sewing now. I help her and work at the library a few hours each week organizing books, though they hardly pay me enough to mention. We get by. Your mother does not mind you sitting out here alone. She minds plenty. But I am 22 years old and I refuse to spend every moment of my life cooped up in our room above the general store. These evening hours with my books are the only thing I have that is truly mine." 22. So she was close to his own age of 25. Austin felt relieved at that for reasons he did not examine too closely. "I am Katherine, by the way, Katherine Dawson." She offered her hand in a gesture that seemed almost bold for the times. He shook it carefully, aware of how rough his own palm was against her smaller hand. "Austin Xander." "Just passing through, mostly." "Most people are just passing through Bodie. They come for the silver and leave when they realize the only people getting rich are the mine owners and the saloon keepers. Will you leave soon?" The question caught him off guard. "Plan to. But I suppose I will stay a bit longer. Work is steady at the mill." Katherine smiled as if she could see right through that excuse, and maybe she could. "Well then, Austin Xander, who is just passing through, I should get home before it gets too dark. My mother really will worry if I am too late." She stood and Austin rose quickly to his feet as well, remembering his manners. "Can I walk you home? This town has a rough element." "It does indeed. Yes, thank you." They walked together through the dusty streets as the last light faded from the sky. Katherine kept her book tucked under one arm and maintained a proper distance, but Austin found himself acutely aware of her presence beside him. She pointed out various buildings and shared stories about the town, some amusing and others tinged with the melancholy that seemed to hang over Bodie like the ever-present dust. When they reached the general store, she paused at the external staircase that led to the second-floor rooms. "Thank you for the escort. It was kind of you. Will you be reading tomorrow evening?" The question came out before he could stop it, sounding far too eager, but Katherine's smile only grew. "I expect I will. Same place, same time. I am a creature of habit. Maybe I will walk by again." "Make sure you get home safe." "Maybe I would like that." Austin touched the brim of his hat and watched her climb the stairs before turning back toward his own lodgings. His heart felt lighter than it had in years, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice warned him that he was treading on dangerous ground. He ignored it completely. The next 2 weeks fell into a pattern that became the highlight of Austin's days. He would finish at the mill, clean up as best he could at the boarding house, and make his way to the library where Katherine would be waiting with her books and her stories. Sometimes they talked for only a few minutes before he walked her home. Other times they sat together for nearly an hour, discussing everything from the books she read to his experiences traveling across the West. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Katherine had a quick mind and a sharp wit, and she was not afraid to challenge him when she disagreed with something he said. She told him about the characters in her novels as if they were real people she knew, bringing them to life with her descriptions. In turn, Austin found himself sharing stories from his own past that he had never told anyone, about his family's ranch in Texas, about the drought that had ruined them, about the fever that had taken his parents and younger sister within days of each other. "That is why you keep moving," Katherine said one evening after he had finished a particularly difficult story. "You are trying to outrun the grief. Maybe, or maybe I just have not found a reason to stop." She looked at him then with those piercing green eyes, and he thought she might say something significant, but instead, she just smiled softly and changed the subject to the book she was reading, something by an author named Hawthorne. On the Saturday of his 3rd week in Bodie, Austin received his wages from the mill and found himself walking into the general store rather than heading straight to the saloon for a drink and a meal, as was his custom. The proprietor, a balding man named Mr. Carson, looked up from his ledger. "Help you with something?" Austin browsed the shelves, feeling suddenly foolish but committed to his purpose. "You have any books for sale?" "Few in the back. Not much call for them usually. Let me see what I have got." Mr. Carson disappeared into a storage room and returned with 3 worn volumes. "Got a Bible, a copy of some poems by Longfellow, and this one, The Last of the Mohicans. That is all I have at the moment." Austin examined the Cooper novel, running his fingers over the embossed cover. "How much?" "For that one, $1. It was more than Austin wanted to spend, representing a significant chunk of his weekly wages, but he handed over the money anyway. Mr. Carson wrapped the book in brown paper and twine. "Did not figure you for a reading man," the proprietor said conversationally. "Trying something new?" "Well, if you are looking for recommendations, my daughter Katherine reads more than anyone in this town. Lives right upstairs, in fact." Austin nearly dropped the package. "Katherine Dawson is your daughter, stepdaughter, technically. Married her mother, Ellen, about a year ago. Good woman, hard worker. Katherine is a bit headstrong for my taste, always has her nose in a book, but she is good to her mother." This new information rearranged several things in Austin's mind. Katherine had never mentioned her mother remarrying, though thinking back, she had only ever referred to my mother or we, never giving more details about their living situation. "She is a kind young woman," Austin said carefully. "Helped me with some directions when I first arrived in town." Mr. Carson grunted non-committally and returned to his ledger, clearly done with the conversation. Austin left the store and made his way to his room, tucking the wrapped book carefully into his satchel. That evening, he brought the book with him to the library. Katherine was already there, and she looked up with surprise when she saw the package under his arm. "What do you have there?" Austin sat beside her on the steps, closer than he usually dared. "Bought something today. Thought maybe you could help me with it." He unwrapped the book and held it out. Katherine's eyes widened. "Austin, this must have cost you a fortune. Books are so expensive here." "Worth it if you will read it with me. You could teach me to follow along with the words. I know my letters just never got good at putting them all together for reading." Her expression softened into something that made Austin's chest tight. "You want to learn to read? Truly. Want to understand what makes you light up the way you do when you talk about these stories. And maybe having a book around will give us more to discuss during these evenings." Katherine touched the cover gently, reverently. "This is one of my favorite stories. Oh, Austin, are you certain? Learning to read as an adult is difficult work." "I have done difficult things before. I can handle it." "Then yes, I would be honored to help you." Her smile was brilliant, and Austin felt he would have paid 10 times the price just to see it. They began that very evening, Katherine opening to the first page and pointing out words, helping him sound out the letters and syllables. Austin struggled with it, feeling frustrated at how something that seemed so easy for her could be so challenging for him, but Katherine remained patient and encouraging. "You are doing wonderfully," she insisted when he stumbled over the same sentence for the third time. "Reading is like anything else. It takes practice." "How did you learn?" "My real father taught me. He was a school teacher before he caught the silver fever. He believed education was the most valuable thing you could give a child, boy or girl. He spent every evening teaching me reading, arithmetic, history, everything he could. When he died, I thought about becoming a teacher myself, but there are no schools here that would hire a woman, and we needed money immediately, so I work at the library and help my mother instead." "Your stepfather seems like a practical man." Katherine's expression shifted, becoming guarded. "He is that, very practical, especially when it comes to matters of money and reputation." There was clearly more to that story, but before Austin could ask, she turned their attention back to the book. They worked for another half-hour before the light became too dim to continue, and Austin walked her home as always. At the base of the stairs, Katherine paused. "Austin, I need to tell you something. My stepfather mentioned that a man came into the store today asking about books." "That was you, was it not?" "It was. He will wonder why. He is suspicious by nature and protective of my mother. If he thinks there is something improper happening, there could be trouble." "There is nothing improper. We are just friends." Katherine met his eyes steadily. "Are we just friends?" The question hung in the cooling evening air. Austin knew he should say yes, should maintain that safe distance, but he found he could not lie to her. "I do not know what we are," he admitted. "I just know that these evenings with you are the best part of my day. The best part of a lot of years, if I am being honest. For me as well," she said quietly. "But Austin, my situation is complicated. My stepfather has plans for me, I think. There is a mine foreman named Richard Cartwright who has been coming around the store more often, and Mr. Carson encourages his visits. He is older, maybe 40, but he has money and position. I think an arrangement is being discussed." Anger flared in Austin's chest. "You are not a piece of property to be arranged. Tell that to my stepfather. My mother depends on him for our security. I cannot just rebel against his wishes without consequences for her. It is not that simple." Austin wanted to argue to tell her she could leave. that she did not have to accept a life she did not want, but he understood family obligation too well. "What do you want, Katherine?" She looked up at him, and in the lamplight from the store window, he could see conflict warring in her expression. "I want to choose my own path. I want to marry someone I love, not someone practical. I want adventure and poetry and passion, all the things I read about in my books." But wanting something and being able to have it are very different things. If things were different, if you were free to choose, would you want to spend time with someone like me? A drifter with nothing to his name but a horse and some tools. "Austin, I already choose to spend time with you every evening. That should tell you everything you need to know." The air between them felt charged with possibility. Austin took a small step closer, close enough that he could smell the lavender soap she used, could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. "Katherine, I think I should tell you that these past weeks have meant more to me than I can properly say. You have given me something I did not think I would ever have again. Hope, maybe, or purpose. I'm not even sure what to call it." "I know exactly what you mean," she whispered. "I feel it too." They stood like that for a long moment, close but not touching, the wanting palpable between them. Then a door slammed somewhere above them and Katherine stepped back quickly. "I should go. But tomorrow evening, same place. I will be there." Austin watched her climb the stairs and disappear inside, then made his way back through the darkening streets with his mind racing. He had come to Bodie expecting nothing, wanting nothing, and now everything had changed. The thought of Katherine being forced into marriage with some foreman she did not love made his blood boil, but what could he offer her instead? He had no home, no real prospects beyond day labor, nothing that could compete with a man of means and position. That night, Austin made a decision. If he was going to do this, if he was going to pursue Katherine seriously, he needed to build something real. The next morning he went to see the owner of the lumber mill, a stern man named Mr. Patterson. "I want more work," Austin said directly. "Extra hours, different jobs, whatever you have got. I am willing to do anything." Mr. Patterson studied him with shrewd eyes. "Most men want less work, not more. What is driving this sudden ambition? Personal reasons. But I am a good worker and you know it. I am never late, never drunk on the job, and I can outwork most men half my age. That you can. Tell you what, we need someone to supervise the night crew at the mill, make sure the cutting gets done properly and the lumber gets stacked right. It is 4 extra hours every evening, 6 nights a week. Pay is decent. You interested?" 4 hours every evening would mean less time with Katherine but more money to build a future. Austin weighed his options quickly. "Can I start tomorrow night? I have something important tonight." "Tomorrow is fine. But if you take this position, I need reliability. You cannot just disappear when the mood strikes you." "I am not going anywhere." The words felt like a vow, a complete reversal of everything Austin had been for the past 3 years. Mr. Patterson must have heard the conviction in his voice because he nodded approvingly and offered his hand to seal the agreement. Austin worked with unusual focus that day, his mind already planning ahead. With the extra wages from the supervisory position, he could start saving properly. In 6 months, maybe a year, he might have enough to buy some land on the outskirts of town, start building a cabin. It was not much, but it was more than he had now, and it was a start. That evening, he met Katherine at the library with a mixture of excitement and dread about the news he had to share. She was reading Moby Dick, and she looked up with her usual bright smile when he approached. "I have something to tell you," he said, settling beside her. "I took a promotion at the mill, more money but also more hours. I will have to work evenings now starting tomorrow." Katherine's smile faded. "Oh, that is wonderful about the promotion, but I will miss these evenings." So will I, but I had to do it, Katherine. If I am going to have any chance of being someone who could offer you something real, I need to build something first. I cannot compete with a mine foreman on what I make now. Understanding dawned in her expression. Austin, you do not have to compete with anyone. I do not care about money. But your stepfather does, and your mother does, and they have every right to want security for you. I cannot ask you to choose a life of poverty and uncertainty just because we enjoy each other's company. It is more than enjoying each other's company, and you know it. He did know it. What he felt for Katherine had grown far beyond simple friendship or attraction. She had become essential to him in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. Then give me time to make myself into someone worthy of you. I will work hard, save my money, and build something real. And when I have something to offer besides empty pockets and a wandering life, I will come to your stepfather properly and ask permission to court you. Katherine reached out and took his hand, a bold gesture that made Austin's heart race. I do not need grand gestures or wealth, Austin. But I understand what you are saying, and I respect it. Just promise me you will not disappear, that these past weeks meant something real to you. They meant everything to me. He squeezed her hand gently. I am not going anywhere. I will see you on Sunday, my one day off. We could take a walk, if you would like, somewhere more proper than library steps. I would like that very much. They sat together until full dark, Austin making his way through several more pages of The Last of the Mohicans with Katherine's patient help. His reading was improving slowly, each session making the words come a bit easier. When he finally walked her home, they lingered at the bottom of the stairs longer than usual. This feels like goodbye, Katherine said softly. It is just good night. I will see you in a few days. A few days feels very long right now. Austin could not argue with that. Acting on impulse, he lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently, a gesture he had seen gentlemen perform but had never attempted himself. Good night, Katherine. Her smile was worth any awkwardness in the gesture. Good night, Austin. The next weeks were grueling. Austin worked from dawn until late into the night, supervising the night crew with the same dedication he brought to his daytime labor. The extra wages added up slowly but steadily. He moved from the boarding house to a cheaper room above a stable, cutting his expenses and banking the difference. He ate simply, spent nothing on drink or entertainment, and focused entirely on his goal. Sunday afternoons became sacred. No matter how exhausted he was, Austin would clean himself up and meet Katherine for their walks. They explored the hills around Bodie, talking about everything and nothing, slowly learning each other in deeper ways. Katherine told him about her childhood in Missouri, about the father she had loved and lost. Austin shared more about Texas, about the ranch that had been his whole world until it was not. You ever think about going back? Katherine asked one afternoon as they sat on a rocky outcrop overlooking the town. Sometimes, but there is nothing to go back to. The land was sold for debts. Everything I knew is gone. Maybe you could build something new, a different ranch, a different life. Maybe. Is that something you would want? Ranch life is hard, especially for women. Katherine smiled. I read a wonderful book once about a woman who ran a ranch all by herself after her husband died. She was strong and capable and did not need anyone to tell her what to do. I rather like that idea. You want to run a ranch. I want to have choices. Whether that is a ranch or a bookstore or something else entirely, I want it to be my decision. That is what I want most of all, freedom to choose. Austin understood that desire bone deep. I cannot promise you a ranch or a bookstore. But I can promise that if you choose me, it will always be your choice. I will never force you or pressure you or make decisions over your head. That is worth more than all the silver in Bodie, Katherine said, and she leaned her head briefly on his shoulder, a moment of closeness that felt more intimate than a kiss. 3 months after Austin took the supervisor position, Mr. Carson confronted him in the general store. Austin had come in to buy supplies and found Katherine's stepfather waiting behind the counter with a stern expression. "I need to have a word with you about my stepdaughter." Austin had been expecting this conversation, but that did not make it any easier. "Yes, sir. I am aware that you have been walking out with Katherine on Sundays. She thinks I do not notice, but I notice everything. Now, I am going to speak plainly. Katherine is a good girl, and her mother worries about her future. There is a respectable man, a foreman at the Golden Eagle mine, who has expressed serious interest in marrying her. He is established with good income and good prospects. You are a laborer who lives above a stable. You see my concern." "I do, sir. But with respect, what Katherine wants should matter in this decision." Mr. Carson's expression hardened. "Katherine is young and romantic. She does not understand that love does not put food on the table or a roof over your head. I have a responsibility to her mother to see that Katherine is settled properly. I am working on establishing myself. I have been saving money, making plans. In a few more months, I will be in a position to offer Katherine a real home. A few more months, Richard Cartwright will have moved on to someone else, and Katherine will have lost her best opportunity. No, I think it would be best if you stopped these Sunday walks. Let Katherine focus on the future her mother and I have arranged." Austin felt anger rising but forced it down. Losing his temper would only make things worse. "Have you asked Katherine what she wants?" "I do not need to ask. I know what is best for her. With all due respect, sir, I think you are wrong, but I will not go behind your back or act dishonorably. If you forbid me from seeing Katherine, I will speak to her about it myself and let her make the choice. There is no choice to make. The matter is settled." Austin left the store feeling like he had been punched in the gut. He went straight to the library, hoping to find Katherine there even though it was mid-afternoon and not her usual time. She was inside, organizing returned books on the shelves. "Austin, what are you doing here? You should be sleeping before your evening shift. Your stepfather just told me to stop seeing you. Said he is planning for you to marry that foreman, Richard Cartwright." Katherine's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "He had no right to speak to you like that. I am not a child and I will not be married off like property." "Katherine, maybe you should consider it. Not Cartwright specifically, but someone established, someone who can give you security. I have been working as hard as I can, but I am still just barely getting by. It could be years before I have anything real to offer you." "Do you want to stop seeing me? Is that what you are saying?" "No, God, no. But I want what is best for you, and maybe that is not a drifter who lives above a stable and smells like sawdust all the time." Katherine crossed the small room and stood directly in front of him, her eyes blazing. "Austin Xander, you listen to me. I have spent my whole life being told what is best for me, what I should want, who I should be. My stepfather wants me to marry a man I have never had a real conversation with because he has money. My mother wants me to be safe and comfortable, even if it means being miserable. Everyone wants something from me except the one thing that actually matters, which is what I want, and what I want is you." The words hung between them, bold and undeniable. Austin felt like his heart might burst out of his chest. "Katherine, I have nothing. Just plans and hopes and not much else. You have yourself, and that is everything I need. I do not care about money or position or what anyone else thinks. These past months with you have been the happiest of my life. When I am with you, I feel like the person I was always meant to be, not the person everyone expects me to be. That is worth more than all the security in the world." Austin reached for her then, unable to stop himself. He cupped her face in his rough hands, seeing his entire future in her green eyes. "Are you absolutely certain? Because once I kiss you, once we do this, I am not letting you go. Your stepfather will probably hate me. Half the town will think you are making a terrible mistake, and life will be hard for a long while. I have never been more certain of anything." He kissed her then, finally, after months of wanting and waiting. Katherine melted into him, her hands gripping his shirt as if to anchor herself. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but quickly deepened into something that spoke of all the longing they had both been holding back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Austin rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said, the words coming easily despite never having said them to anyone before. "I love you, Katherine, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "I love you too. I have for weeks now, maybe longer, and I could never regret this." They stood together in the quiet library, holding each other while dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight. Austin felt something settle in his chest, a sense of rightness and purpose that he had been missing since he lost his family. "What do we do now?" Katherine asked quietly. "Now I work harder than ever to build us a life. And you tell your stepfather that you are not marrying anyone except me, and that he had better get used to the idea." Katherine laughed, a slightly shaky sound. "That conversation is going to be dreadful. Want me there with you? No, this is something I need to do myself. But thank you for offering." They kissed again, slower this time, savoring it. Then Austin reluctantly pulled away. "I need to get some sleep before my shift, but I will see you Sunday." "Sunday, and Austin, thank you for not giving up on us. Never. You are stuck with me now." He left the library walking on air, exhausted and exhilarated at the same time. The confrontation with Mr. Carson had not gone the way anyone expected, but it had forced everything into the open, and for that, Austin was grateful. No more sneaking around or pretending their feelings were something less than what they were. That evening at the mill, Austin worked with renewed purpose. Every board he cut, every stack he supervised, was one small step toward building a life with Katherine. The work felt less like drudgery and more like investment now. On Sunday, Katherine met him with news that her confrontation with her stepfather had gone exactly as poorly as expected. Mr. Carson had forbidden her from seeing Austin, threatened to cut her off completely, and insisted she at least meet with Richard Cartwright properly. Katherine's mother had cried and pleaded, worried about her daughter's future. "But I stood my ground," Katherine said as they walked through the hills. "I told them I was a grown woman, and I would make my own choices about my life. Mr. Carson said if I insisted on throwing my life away on a nobody, I should not expect any help from him. My mother is caught in the middle, poor thing. She wants me to be happy, but she is also terrified of me ending up poor and struggling. I am sorry I have caused trouble in your family. You have not caused anything. These tensions were always there, just hidden under the surface. Better to have everything out in the open." They walked in silence for a while, hand in hand, until Austin stopped at a particularly scenic overlook. "Katherine, I have been thinking. We could leave Bodie, go somewhere else, start fresh where nobody knows us or has opinions about what we should do. Run away together, not running exactly. More like choosing our own path. I could find work anywhere. We could get married in whatever town we land in, build a life on our own terms." Katherine considered this, chewing her lower lip the way she did when thinking hard about something. "It is tempting, but I cannot leave my mother, Austin. She depends on me, and despite everything, I love her. She has had a hard life, and I cannot just abandon her. What if we stayed in Bodie then, but got married anyway? Your stepfather would have to accept it eventually. Would he, though? He is stubborn and proud. He might make life very difficult for us. Let him try. I am stubborn too, Katherine smiled at that. Yes, you are. Very well. Let us do this properly. You ask for my hand, we get married, and we face whatever comes together. How soon can you afford a wedding? Austin did quick calculations in his head. 3 months, maybe. I need enough saved for a small house, furniture, supplies to get us started. I will not have you living above a stable or in some rough shack. I would live in a tent if it meant being with you. Well, you are not going to have to. 3 months, Katherine. Then you will be Katherine Xander and nobody can tell us what to do anymore. They sealed the promise with a kiss that made Austin forget about everything except the woman in his arms. 3 months suddenly felt like an eternity, but he would endure it. He had waited 25 years to find someone like Katherine. He could wait a little longer to make her his wife. The next weeks tested Austin's resolve in ways he had not anticipated. Mr. Carson made good on his promise to make things difficult, spreading word around town that Austin was a fortune hunter trying to take advantage of a naive girl. The rumors were absurd considering Katherine had no fortune to hunt, but they created an uncomfortable atmosphere nonetheless. Some of the men at the mill gave Austin knowing looks or made crude comments that he had to ignore to keep his job. Katherine faced her own challenges. Her stepfather pressured her constantly to reconsider, bringing Richard Cartwright around the store on transparent pretexts. To her credit, Katherine remained coolly polite but distant to the foreman, making her lack of interest abundantly clear. Her mother vacillated between supporting Katherine's choice and begging her to think practically. Through it all, Austin and Katherine clung to their Sunday afternoons and stolen moments at the library. They made plans for their future with the optimism of people in love, discussing everything from what they would name their eventual children to where they might travel someday when money allowed. 2 months into their engagement, disaster struck. Austin was supervising the night crew when one of the saw blades broke, sending a piece of metal flying. It struck one of the workers, a young man named Tommy, causing a serious injury. Austin acted quickly, stopping the bleeding and getting Tommy to the doctor, but the incident shook everyone. The mill owner, Mr. Patterson, conducted an investigation and determined that the blade had been old and should have been replaced weeks earlier. He blamed Austin for not noticing the wear and tear, even though equipment maintenance was not technically part of his supervisory duties. "I am not firing you," Patterson said grimly, "but I am taking you off the supervisor position, back to regular day labor, regular wages." The loss of income was devastating. Austin had been so close to having enough saved for the house and wedding. Now he would have to start over or at least rebuild, and it would take months longer than planned. He broke the news to Katherine that Sunday with a heavy heart. "I am so sorry. I know we talked about getting married in a month, but now it will have to wait. I cannot afford to support us on what I will be making." Katherine took the news calmly, more calmly than Austin had any right to expect. "How long will it take to save up again?" 4 months, maybe 5. "I will pick up whatever extra work I can find, but winter is coming and jobs will be scarce." "Then we will wait 4 or 5 months. It does not change anything between us, Austin. We are still getting married, just on a different schedule. Your stepfather will see this as proof that I cannot provide for you. My stepfather can jump in the mine shaft for all I care." Katherine's vehemence made Austin smile despite his dark mood. "We will manage, Austin. People have gotten married on less than what you have saved. We do not need much. I want to give you more than just getting by. You deserve better than scraping and struggling. I deserve to be happy and you make me happy. Everything else is just details." Her faith in him was humbling. Austin pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, grateful beyond words for her presence in his life. In the end, they decided to adjust their plans. Rather than waiting until Austin could afford a house, they would get married in 2 months and live temporarily in a room at a boarding house that catered to families. It would be tight quarters but respectable, and it would allow them to start their life together without further delay. When Austin went to Mr. Carson to formally ask for Katherine's hand in marriage, the meeting went exactly as poorly as expected. "Absolutely not. I will not give my blessing to this foolishness." "With respect, sir, I am not really asking for your blessing. I am informing you of our intentions as a courtesy. Katherine and I are getting married whether you approve or not." Mr. Carson's face turned an alarming shade of red. "She is throwing her life away on a man who cannot even hold down a decent job. You were demoted, Xander. Everyone in town knows it. I made a mistake and I paid for it, but I am still working, still earning, and still committed to building a good life for Katherine. You cannot possibly support her properly. What happens when children come? How will you feed them on a laborer's wages?" "The same way thousands of other working families manage. We will be careful with money, we will work hard, and we will make it work because we love each other." "Love." Mr. Carson said the word like a curse. "Love does not pay bills or put food on the table." I had hoped Katherine would be more sensible, but she has always been too much like her father, chasing dreams instead of reality. Austin felt his temper rising but kept his voice level. "Her father sounds like he was a good man who valued the right things. Maybe Katherine learned those values from him. Get out of my store. You are not welcome here, and if I see you sniffing around Katherine again, there will be trouble. I will leave. But you should know that 2 months from today, I am going to marry your stepdaughter at the Methodist Church. You and Mrs. Carson are welcome to attend if you choose, but either way, it is happening." Austin walked out before Mr. Carson could respond, his hands shaking slightly from the confrontation. He had never been good at standing up to authority figures, but for Katherine, he would face down anyone. The next weeks were a blur of preparations. Katherine sewed herself a simple wedding dress with help from some of the women at church who had warmed to her situation, despite the town gossip. Austin worked extra hours whenever possible, squirreling away every spare penny. They found a room at a boarding house run by a kindly widow named Mrs. Fletcher, who offered them a discounted rate after hearing their story. 3 days before the wedding, Katherine's mother came to see Austin at the mill. Ellen Dawson Carson was a small, worn woman who looked older than her years, and she approached him nervously during his lunch break. "Mr. Xander, may I speak with you?" "Of course, madam. Is Katherine all right?" "She is fine. I came because I wanted to tell you something without my husband knowing. Katherine is my only child, the most precious thing in my life. When her father died, I thought my world had ended. Mr. Carson offered security and stability when I desperately needed it, so I married him even though I did not love him the way I loved Katherine's father. I understand making practical choices, and I understand the value of security." Austin waited, not sure where this was going. "But I also understand love," Ellen continued. "I see the way Katherine looks at you, and it is the same way I used to look at her father. She is happy in a way she has not been since we came to this awful town. So I want you to know that I support this marriage, even if I cannot say so publicly. My husband controls our finances and our home, but he does not control my heart. I will be at that church on Saturday, and I will be proud to watch my daughter marry a man who clearly loves her." Austin felt unexpected emotion tightening his throat. "Thank you, Mrs. Carson. That means more than you know. Just promise me you will take care of her, not financially necessarily, though I hope you will do your best there too, but emotionally. Keep that light in her eyes. She has had too much darkness in her young life already. I promise. I would die before I let anything hurt her. Ellen patted his arm gently. I believe you. Welcome to the family, Mr. Xander. She left before Austin could respond, hurrying away as if afraid of being seen. Austin returned to work with renewed determination. He might not have Mr. Carson's approval, but having Katherine's mother's blessing felt like a victory. Saturday dawned clear and cool, a perfect November morning in the mountains. Austin put on the new shirt he had bought for the occasion and made his way to the Methodist church with his heart pounding. A small group had gathered, mostly friends Austin had made at the mill and women Katherine knew from the library. Pete, his co-worker, stood up with him as best man. Then Katherine appeared at the back of the church on her mother's arm, and Austin forgot to breathe. She wore a simple cream-colored dress she had sewn herself, her dark hair pinned up with small flowers, and she had never looked more beautiful. She walked down the short aisle with her eyes locked on Austin, her smile radiant. Mr. Carson had refused to attend, but Ellen stood proudly beside her daughter, tears streaming down her face. When the minister asked who gave this woman in marriage, Ellen said clearly, I do, with all my blessing, and there was defiance in her voice that made several people smile. The ceremony itself was simple and brief. Austin and Katherine exchanged vows they had written themselves, promising to love and support each other through whatever challenges life brought. When the minister finally said, You may kiss your bride, Austin cupped Katherine's face tenderly and kissed her like she was the most precious thing in the world because she was. The small gathering cheered, and they were married. The reception was held in the church hall, a modest affair with donated food and no alcohol out of respect for the church setting. It did not matter. Austin and Katherine were so wrapped up in each other that they barely noticed their surroundings. They danced to music played on an out-of-tune piano, laughed with their guests, and counted down the minutes until they could be alone. When they finally escaped to their room at Mrs. Fletcher's boarding house, the reality of their situation hit Austin. They were married. Katherine was his wife. This incredible, intelligent, beautiful woman had chosen him over security and comfort, and he was determined to spend the rest of his life proving she had made the right choice. Hello, husband, Katherine said with a smile that held both nervousness and excitement. Hello, wife. Austin closed the distance between them, suddenly hesitant. They had kissed many times, but this was different. This was the beginning of their forever. Katherine must have sensed his hesitation because she reached up and touched his face. I am not nervous, she said softly. I trust you completely. That trust was the greatest gift she could have given him. Austin kissed her gently at first, then with increasing passion as she responded in kind. They discovered each other slowly, tenderly, with none of the awkwardness Austin had worried about. Being with Katherine felt like coming home, like finding the piece of himself he had been missing. Later, as they lay tangled together in the narrow bed, Katherine traced patterns on Austin's chest. That was nothing like what the books describe. It was so much better. Austin laughed. What do your books say? A lot of metaphorical swooning and not much useful detail. I prefer reality. Me too. They talked quietly into the night, making plans and sharing dreams until they fell asleep in each other's arms. Austin woke several times just to make sure it was real, that Katherine was truly there beside him, his wife, his partner, his future. The next months were challenging but happy. Austin worked long hours at the mill while Katherine continued at the library and took in mending work to add to their income. Their room was small and they had to be creative with space, but they made it cozy. Katherine put up cheerful curtains she had sewn, and Austin built a small bookshelf for her growing collection of books. They established routines and rhythms, learning how to live together. Katherine was tidy where Austin tended toward messiness. He woke early while she preferred to sleep late when possible. But they navigated these differences with humor and patience, always coming back to the foundation of love and respect that held them together. Winter in Bodie was harsh. The snow piled high and the wind cut like knives. But inside their small room, Austin and Katherine created warmth. They read together in the evenings, Austin's reading improving steadily under Katherine's patient teaching. They talked about everything under the sun. They made love with increasing confidence and joy. They built a life. In February, Katherine discovered she was pregnant. She told Austin one evening after dinner, suddenly shy despite their intimacy. "I think we are going to have a baby. I am fairly certain." Austin felt like someone had knocked the air from his lungs. "A baby, are you sure?" "As sure as I can be without seeing a doctor. All the signs are there." 1,000 emotions crashed through Austin at once. Joy, terror, excitement, anxiety. A baby. He was going to be a father. The responsibility felt crushing and exhilarating in equal measure. "Austin, say something." "Are you happy?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she might disappear. "Happy does not even begin to cover it. Terrified too, if I am being honest, but mostly happy. We are going to have a baby." Katherine hugged him back just as fiercely. "I am scared too. But we will figure it out together." They did figure it out, though not without struggles. The pregnancy was harder than either expected. Katherine suffered terrible morning sickness for months, and working at the library became difficult. She eventually had to quit, losing that small income just when they needed every penny for the coming baby. Austin picked up whatever extra work he could find, hauling goods, repairing fences, anything to bring in a few more dollars. He was exhausted constantly, but the thought of his growing family kept him going. In late May, Katherine's mother came to visit, bringing baby clothes she had sewn in secret and some money she had managed to save from her household allowance. "I cannot come around often," Ellen explained. "My husband would be furious if he knew I was here, but I wanted you to have these things. A baby should be welcomed properly." "Thank you, Mother," Katherine said, tears streaming down her face. "I have missed you so much." "I have missed you too, darling." "You look happy, though, despite everything. That is what matters most." Ellen stayed for an hour, holding Katherine's hand and offering advice about childbirth and infant care. When she left, she hugged Austin tightly. "You are doing well by her. I can see that. Keep it up." In early July, Katherine went into labor on a sweltering afternoon. Mrs. Fletcher helped Austin get Katherine to the doctor's office, then shooed him out to wait with the other anxious fathers and husbands. The wait felt endless. Austin paced the wooden sidewalk outside, praying to a God he had never been sure he believed in, making desperate bargains if only Katherine would be safe. Finally, after what felt like days but was really only 8 hours, the doctor emerged. "Congratulations, Mr. Xander. You have a healthy son. Your wife is tired but doing well." A son. Austin rushed inside to find Katherine propped up in bed, exhausted but beaming, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a blanket. His son. Their son. "Come meet him," Katherine said softly. Austin approached slowly, almost afraid to touch something so small and perfect. The baby had a shock of dark hair and a red, scrunched face, and Austin fell completely in love in an instant. "He is perfect," Austin whispered. "You are perfect. I cannot believe we made him." "We did. We made him together," Katherine smiled tiredly. "I was thinking we could name him Andrew after my father. Andrew James Xander. What do you think?" "I think that is perfect." "Hello, Andrew. I am your papa, and I promise I am going to do everything in my power to give you a good life." The baby made a small sound, Not quite a cry, but not quite peaceful either, and Katherine laughed. "I think he is hungry. Could you help me?" Austin helped Katherine adjust Andrew for his first feeding, marveling at how natural she looked despite being brand new to motherhood. He sat beside them, his little family, and felt a sense of completeness he had never known was possible. The first weeks with a newborn were chaotic. Andrew cried frequently, especially at night, and neither Austin nor Katherine got much sleep. Money was tighter than ever with an extra mouth to feed, even a tiny one. But they managed through teamwork and determination. Mrs. Fletcher was a godsend, offering advice and occasional babysitting so Katherine could rest. A few of the women from church brought food and hand-me-down baby items. Even Pete from the mill stopped by with a wooden cradle he had built himself, gruffly uncomfortable with gratitude but clearly pleased to help. By August, they had found their rhythm. Katherine was recovering well. Andrew was starting to sleep in longer stretches, and Austin had received a small raise at the mill for his consistent good work. They were still poor by most standards, but they were making it work. One Sunday afternoon, as they walked together through the hills with Andrew sleeping in a sling against Katherine's chest, they talked about the future. "I have been saving again," Austin said. "Not as much as before, but steadily. In another year, maybe two, we could start looking at a small piece of land, build ourselves a proper house. You still think about having a ranch someday?" "Sometimes. Though with a family to support, it seems more like a dream than a real possibility." "Why?" Katherine shrugged. "I have been thinking about what we want for Andrew, for any other children we might have. I want them to grow up with space to run and play, not stuck in a boarding house room. I want them to know the value of hard work and building something with their own hands. A ranch teaches all of that. But it also requires capital we do not have. Not yet. But maybe someday, Austin. We have already built so much from nothing. What is a ranch compared to what we have accomplished already?" Austin pulled her close, careful not to squish Andrew between them. "I do not know what I did to deserve you, Katherine Xander, but I thank God every day that I saw you sitting on those library steps. I thank God you were brave enough to say hello instead of just walking past like everyone else." They stood together watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, their son sleeping peacefully between them. And Austin felt rich beyond measure, despite the coins in his pocket that barely jingled. The next year brought changes and challenges. Andrew grew from a tiny infant into a chubby, active baby who kept Katherine busy every moment. Austin continued at the mill, still saving whenever possible. They moved from the boarding house to a small cabin on the outskirts of town, nothing fancy but theirs, with 2 rooms and a proper kitchen. Katherine planted a garden and they started keeping chickens for eggs. Life settled into a comfortable pattern. They were still poor, still working hard for every dollar, but they were happy. Andrew's first words, his first steps, his first everything were celebrated like royal events. Katherine read to him every evening from her beloved books, already instilling in him her love of stories. On their second wedding anniversary, Austin surprised Katherine with a day off. Mrs. Fletcher agreed to watch Andrew, and Austin took his wife on a proper outing to a nice restaurant in town, spending more than he should but not caring because the joy on Katherine's face was worth every penny. "This is lovely," Katherine said, looking around at the fancy dining room. "I feel like a grand lady." "You are a grand lady, the grandest I know." She reached across the table to take his hand. "Do you ever regret it, marrying me, tying yourself down when you were used to drifting? Not for a single second. You and Andrew are the best things that ever happened to me. I have never been happier or more content than I am right now. Even though we are still struggling financially, Even though we do not have all the things you wanted to give me, Katherine, we have everything that matters. A home, a family, love. Everything else is just details." She smiled, that same brilliant smile that had captivated him from the beginning. "I love you, Austin Xander, more than words can express. I love you too. Forever." They ate their fancy meal and talked about dreams and plans, and when they walked home through the evening streets of Bodie, Austin felt like the richest man alive. Time passed as it does, marked by small joys and occasional challenges. Andrew grew into a bright, curious toddler. Katherine found occasional work editing manuscripts for a local newspaper editor who appreciated her sharp eye and command of language. Austin worked his way up to assistant foreman at the mill, earning slightly better wages and more respect. When Andrew was 2, Katherine announced she was pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, perhaps because they knew what to expect, and Katherine delivered a healthy daughter in the spring of 1882. They named her Alice Mee, and she had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair. Now they were 4, a proper family, and their little cabin felt full in the best possible way. Andrew was fascinated by his baby sister, always wanting to help feed her or make her smile. Katherine juggled both children with grace, though she often fell into bed exhausted at the end of the day. "We are outnumbered now," Austin joked one evening as he helped clean up after dinner while Katherine nursed Alice. "Is that a problem? Not at all, though I do not know where we will put any more if we decide to keep expanding." Katherine laughed. "Let us focus on raising these 2 before we think about more." But life, as it often does, had other plans. When Alice was 6 months old and Andrew was nearly 3, an opportunity arose that would change everything. One of the mill owners, Mr. Patterson, called Austin into his office one afternoon. "Xander, I have been impressed with your work over the years. You are reliable, honest, and the men respect you. I am opening a new mill operation about 30 miles south of here, closer to the timber sources. I need someone to run it, and I think you are the man for the job. It comes with a significant raise, a house on the property, and a share in the profits." Austin could barely believe what he was hearing. "You want me to manage an entire mill operation?" "That is what I just said." "Now, it will be hard work. You will be responsible for everything from hiring workers to meeting production quotas to keeping the equipment maintained. But I think you can handle it, and it is a real opportunity to build something for your family. What do you say?" "I say yes, absolutely yes." "When would I start?" "Next month. That gives you time to get your family moved and settled. The house is not fancy, but it is solid and bigger than what you have now. It is on a piece of land with about 10 acres, mostly forested but some cleared. You could run some livestock if you wanted, grow a bigger garden, give those kids of yours room to grow." Austin left the office in a daze. This was more than he had dared hope for, a real position with real prospects. He could not wait to tell Katherine. She cried when he shared the news, happy tears that she wiped away quickly. "This is wonderful, Austin. Everything we have been working toward. It is a lot of responsibility. I will be working long hours, especially at first." "You already work long hours." "At least now you will be working towards something that benefits our family directly." "Oh, Austin, a house with 10 acres. That is practically a ranch. Not quite, but it is a start. A real start." They moved a month later, packing their modest belongings into a wagon and making the journey south with Andrew excited about the adventure and Alice oblivious to the change. The house was everything Mr. Patterson had promised, a sturdy 2-story structure with 4 bedrooms, a real parlor and a kitchen twice the size of their old one. Katherine walked through the empty rooms with wonder. "This is ours, really ours. comes with the job. As long as I manage the mill, we can live here. It is like a palace. The children can each have their own room when they are older. We could have people over for dinner. I could finally have space for all my books. Her joy was infectious. Austin picked her up and spun her around, making her shriek with laughter while Andrew demanded his turn and Alice giggled from her basket. They settled into their new life quickly. The mill work was demanding but rewarding. Austin hired good workers, learned the business inside and out, and soon had the operation running smoothly. The profit share was not huge, but it was real money, more than they had ever had before. Katherine transformed their house into a home, sewing curtains, planting flowers, creating a space that was warm and welcoming. She started a substantial garden and they got chickens, a couple of goats, and even a milk cow. Andrew helped with the animals, taking his responsibilities seriously, and Alice grew from a baby into a toddler who followed her brother everywhere. On quiet evenings, after the children were in bed, Austin and Katherine would sit on their front porch and watch the sun set behind the mountains. They talked about everything and nothing, comfortable in the life they had built together. "You remember when we first met?" Katherine asked one evening. "You were so serious and quiet. I thought you might never talk to me." "I almost did not. I was scared of exactly this, of caring about someone and having something to lose. But then I realized that a life without risk is not really living at all. I am glad you took the risk. Me too. Every single day." 3 years passed in their new home, good years marked by hard work and simple pleasures. Andrew started school in the small town near the mill, proving himself a clever student like his mother. Alice grew into a spirited little girl with her father's determination and her mother's love of stories. Katherine became pregnant twice more, giving birth to twin boys they named Adam and Alexander in the spring of 1885. Their house was full of noise and chaos and love. Austin worked hard to provide for his growing family while Katherine managed the household with impressive skill. They were tired constantly, their hands full from dawn to dusk, but they were happy. The mill continued to thrive under Austin's management. Mr. Patterson was so pleased with the operation that he gave Austin an even larger profit share, and for the first time in his life, Austin had real savings, money that could be invested in the future. "I have been thinking," Austin said one evening as they rocked the twins to sleep. "Mr. Patterson mentioned he might be willing to sell me a portion of the mill operation in a few years, make me a partner rather than just an employee. If we keep saving, I could buy in, and then we would own part of the business ourselves." Katherine looked up from the baby in her arms. "That would be wonderful, true security for our children. It is still years away and nothing is certain, but it feels possible, and that is something. You have given me so much, Austin. This house, these children, this life. It is more than I ever dreamed of when I was sitting on those library steps reading alone. You gave me just as much. You gave me a reason to stop drifting and start living. You believed in me when nobody else did. I always will." The twins finally fell asleep, and Austin and Katherine tiptoed from the nursery. In their own bedroom, they collapsed into bed, exhausted but content. Years continued to pass. The children grew, the mill prospered, and Austin's dream of becoming a partner gradually became reality. By 1890, he owned a 30% share of the mill operation, with plans to increase his stake over time. Andrew was now 12, a responsible boy who helped his father at the mill during summers and showed promise in school. Alice was 10, creative and imaginative, always writing stories or putting on plays for her younger brothers. The twins were rambunctious 5-year-olds who kept everyone on their toes. Katherine had finally achieved her dream of having a proper library. Austin had built shelves along one entire wall of the parlor, and she had slowly filled them with books, some bought new, others found second-hand, all treasured. She read to the children every evening, passing on her love of stories to the next generation. On their 12th wedding anniversary, Austin took Katherine on a trip, just the two of them, leaving the children with a trusted neighbor for 3 days. They traveled to San Francisco, a city neither had ever seen, and spent their time exploring, eating in restaurants and enjoying each other's company without the constant demands of children. On their last night, as they walked along the waterfront watching ships in the harbor, Katherine leaned against Austin's arm. "This has been magical. Thank you for giving me this. Thank you for saying yes 12 years ago, for choosing me over security and sense. It was the best decision I ever made. I have never regretted it for a moment." Austin pulled her close. "Do you ever miss Bodie? Ever wonder what life would have been like if you had made different choices? No, I do not waste time on what-ifs. Our life is not perfect, but it is ours, and I love it. I love you, Austin Xander, more now than I did on our wedding day, if that is possible." "It is possible. I feel the same way. Loving you gets easier and deeper every year." They kissed there on the waterfront, not caring who saw. Two people still deeply in love after 12 years of marriage and 4 children, and all the struggles and joys that came with building a life together. When they returned home, the children rushed to greet them with stories of everything that had happened while they were gone. The house was chaotic and noisy, and exactly where Austin wanted to be. He had traveled so much of his life, always searching for something he could not name. Now he knew what it was: home, family, love. The years that followed brought the normal ups and downs of life. There were good harvests and lean years, healthy times and illnesses, triumphs and disappointments. Through it all, Austin and Katherine remained each other's anchor and support. Andrew grew into a fine young man and left for university in San Francisco, making his parents proud. Alice discovered a talent for teaching and began helping at the local school. The twins were growing into distinct personalities despite being identical in appearance. Katherine's mother, Ellen, had passed away in 1888, finally free from her unhappy marriage to Mr. Carson. She had visited several times over the years, always delighted to see her grandchildren and proud of the life Katherine had built. Her death had been peaceful, and Katherine took comfort in knowing her mother had lived long enough to see her daughter happy. Mr. Carson had never reconciled with Katherine. He died a few years after Ellen, leaving what little he had to distant relatives. Katherine felt sadness at the wasted relationship, but no real grief. Some wounds could not be healed, and she had learned to accept that. In the spring of 1895, Mr. Patterson announced he was retiring and offered to sell Austin the rest of the mill operation. It would take every penny of their savings plus a loan from the bank, but it would make Austin the sole owner of a thriving business. "What do you think?" Austin asked Katherine as they reviewed the numbers. "It is a huge risk. If the mill fails, we could lose everything." "You have been running that mill successfully for 13 years. It will not fail, and even if it did, we would survive. We have survived everything else life has thrown at us. You are not worried about the mill. No, you are the best manager that operation could have. My only concern is that you will work yourself to death trying to prove you deserve it." Austin smiled. "Fair point. I promise to take care of myself and not work too hard. I will hold you to that." They bought the mill, and Austin became a business owner, something he never could have imagined in his drifting days. He ran the operation with the same dedication and integrity that had always defined his work, and the mill continued to thrive. By the turn of the century, the Xander family was well established and respected in their community. Andrew had become a lawyer, married a lovely woman named Sarah, and given them 2 grandchildren. Alice was engaged to a schoolteacher from Sacramento. The twins were 16 and working at the mill while finishing school, learning the business from the ground up. Austin was 47 now, his dark hair shot through with silver, his body bearing the marks of years of hard physical labor. But he was healthy and happy, surrounded by family and blessed with more than he had ever thought possible. Katherine was 44, still beautiful to Austin's eyes, though she laughed and said she was just a tired mother of 4 with too many gray hairs. She had never lost her love of books or her sharp mind, and she was active in the community, organizing a lending library and literacy classes for anyone who wanted to learn to read. One evening in October of 1900, Austin came home to find Katherine sitting on their porch swing reading, just as she had been that first evening he saw her 22 years earlier. The sight made him smile. "Good book?" he asked, settling beside her. "Very good." "It is called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. One of the children at the library recommended it." "What is it about?" "A girl who gets swept away to a magical land and goes on an adventure to find her way home. It is charming." Austin put his arm around her shoulders and she leaned into him, still reading. They sat like that as the sun set, comfortable in the silence, needing no words after so many years together. "Austin," Katherine said eventually, closing her book. "Yes." "Do you remember what you said to me that first evening we really talked, about wanting to join my story?" "I remember thinking it, but I do not think I said those exact words." "Well, I remember thinking that I wanted you to join my story forever. And you did. You have been part of my story for 22 years now, the best chapter of my life. You are the whole story for me, Katherine. Everything good in my life started the day I saw you on those library steps. We have built a good life, have we not? Not perfect, but good. Better than good. Amazing. We have 4 incredible children, 2 grandchildren with more probably coming, a successful business, a beautiful home. We have each other. What more could anyone want? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I am completely content, Austin. Are you? More than I ever thought possible." They rocked gently on the swing as twilight deepened into night. Inside the house, they could hear the twins laughing about something, the sounds of their life continuing around them. Tomorrow there would be work to do, responsibilities to manage, the daily tasks of living. But tonight, there was just this perfect moment of peace. "I love you," Austin said softly. "I will love you until the day I die and probably beyond that. And I love you, my cowboy who was brave enough to talk to a woman reading alone. Thank you for joining my story forever." Austin kissed her gently, a kiss that held 22 years of love and devotion, of struggles overcome and joys shared. When they finally went inside, hand in hand, they both knew they had achieved something rare and precious, a love that had lasted and deepened through everything life threw at them. The years continued to roll by. The Xander family grew with marriages and grandchildren, and eventually great-grandchildren. The mill remained successful under Austin's management, and later under the twins who took over when Austin finally retired. Katherine's library became a fixture of the community, touching countless lives with the gift of literacy and literature. Austin and Katherine grew old together, their hair silver, their faces lined, but their love unchanged. They spent their final years in the house they had made a home, surrounded by family, blessed with the kind of happiness that comes from building a life based on love and respect and partnership. On quiet evenings, they would still sit on their porch swing, sometimes reading, sometimes talking, sometimes just being together in comfortable silence. They would remember that evening in Bodie when a lonely cowboy had noticed a woman reading and decided to take a chance on connection. Neither could have known where that simple moment would lead, but both were grateful every day for the courage to risk their hearts. When Austin passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 78, Katherine held his hand and whispered her love one final time. She lived 3 more years, surrounded by children and grandchildren, still reading voraciously, still encouraging everyone to discover the magic of stories. When she died at 77, she was buried beside Austin, and their shared headstone reads simply, Austin and Katherine Xander, partners in life and love. Their descendants carried on their legacy, building on the foundation of hard work, integrity, and love that Austin and Katherine had established. The mill continued to operate for another generation before eventually being sold. The house remained in the family, passed down and cherished. And the story of how a cowboy fell in love with a woman reading alone became family legend, told and retold to each new generation as an example of how love, when built on a solid foundation, could last forever. Years later, one of their great-great-grandchildren would find Katherine's old books packed away in the attic, including that worn copy of The Last of the Mohicans with both Austin's and Katherine's notes in the margins, evidence of those early reading lessons that had been as much about falling in love as they were about learning letters. The discovery would prompt a search through family papers, uncovering letters and diaries that documented Austin and Katherine's extraordinary love story. That great-great-grandchild would write it all down, preserving the story of how a drifter found purpose, and how a dreamer found freedom, and how together they built something that lasted far beyond their own lifetimes. It was a testament to the power of choosing love over practicality, of taking risks for connection, and of 2 people who saw each other truly and chose each other completely. The story always ended the same way, with the reminder that the greatest adventures are not always about distant lands or dramatic events, but about the quiet courage it takes to open your heart to another person and build a life together, day by day, choice by choice, moment by moment. Austin and Katherine Xander had done exactly that, and their love story became a light for all who came after. Proof that real love, the kind worth having, required work and faith and commitment, but that the rewards were infinite and eternal. Their story was one of hope fulfilled and dreams realized, not through magic or luck, but through partnership and perseverance. It was a reminder that sometimes the most important decision you make is not where you go or what you do, but who you choose to share your life with, and that choosing wisely, choosing for love, can make all the difference.